This is Justin.
And this is Haley. You're listening to The Price of Avocado Toast.
We're a married millennial couple wanting to normalize the conversations around money. We want to hear about your highs and your lows,
The do's and the don'ts on your path towards financial freedom. Hi Toasties, welcome to The Price of Avocado Toast.
Whether you're a first-time listener or you've been following us from the start of this thing, we're so glad to have this conversation with you today.
All right, guys, I am so excited for today's episode. We sat down and talked to Julia from Geobreeze Travel all about credit card hacking and travel hacking, and I am feeling pumped up. How do you feel?
Yeah, I'm excited too. I know that you and I had talked beforehand, and you were kind of nervous about introducing somebody on the podcast that leverages credit cards in their financial literacy space. And I'm not a great traveler, so I had no clue about it either way, but it was definitely a fear of yours. So I don't know how you felt, but I feel with the interview, she really calmed some of my fears and made me excited for our next vacation and our listeners' next vacation.
Definitely. I was really nervous. I didn't want to bring someone onto the podcast that was going to be giving information that might be toxic for people. So I really encourage that if you're scared of credit cards or if you have a bunch of debt, this might not be for you at this time, but listen to this episode with an open mind because travel hacking might be something for you in the future. And we have really battled with our money habits with credit cards, and that's why I was so worried because I didn't want to scare myself, I guess. But I'm feeling much better. I feel at ease, and I'm ready for our free trip to Mexico. Let's go.
Yeah, we don't want to fall back into those bad habits, and so I was really appreciative of Julia stressing the importance of having good money habits to make sure that your vacations and your travel are absolutely what you want out of them. And if somebody is listening to this and they're not even interested in travel hacking, that's okay. I want to encourage you to listen to this episode as well because it's another person of color on the podcast, and we need to lift up those voices and listen to those communities more in the financial space. So I'm really, really thankful that Julia came and spent some of her Sunday with us.
Yes, definitely.
Now, one of the important things we do want to let y'all know before we get into the interview is just a reminder that next week is going to be our final episode for season 1. Baby number 2 is on the way. As y'all know, we're selling our home and moving, so we thought it'd be wise to take off just a couple months and enjoy our time as a family, give the podcast some time to breathe and resonate, and we're going to hop back into it in June. So just for a few months here in the spring, we're going to enjoy our time together. We'll obviously still be on Instagram. You can always connect. We're still going to be tight with you guys, but you're not going to be able to listen to our voices every Wednesday morning. So sorry.
You know, people said they're really going to miss hearing you say that's dope.
We will record a video for Instagram. We'll make a post of me just saying, that's dope. And then anytime somebody does something good in their life, they just go to Instagram and they play me saying, that's dope. And they feel like somebody's celebrating them.
Yeah.
I will be the cheerleader/champion for anybody that needs or anybody that does something that's dope. I love it. Speaking of dope things, you guys, let's drop right into our interview with Julia from Geobreeze Travel.
Let's do this.
All right, you guys, today we are sitting down with Julia. She's the host of the Geobreeze Travel podcast. Julia, thank you so much for spending some time on a Sunday to sit down and chat with us.
Hi, I am so excited to be here and get to talk with you guys today.
I am admittedly a terrible traveler, so I'm actually pretty excited for this interview because, I'm terrible. That's a good way to put it.
Okay, he's not terrible. He is just very inexperienced. He has only been to 2 places with me, right?
Just Nashville and Mexico.
And Cancun. And I have actually traveled quite a bit. I've been to 17 countries or something. Not as many as you, but he has not been anywhere. We had to sign him up for a passport. That's how inexperienced he is. So he definitely knows nothing about travel hacking. So I'm excited for you to learn about this.
Yeah. It's gonna be pretty rad. So nonetheless, thanks for joining us because I need it. I need the help as I age. So I just want to get started by asking you, tell us a little bit about you and what Geobreeze Travel is and exactly what your mission or goal with it is.
Sure. So, hello, my name is Julia. By day, I am an actuary, and outside of that, I host the Geobreeze Travel podcast, and I am a travel hacking coach. And for anybody who's not familiar with travel hacking The way that I do it is just getting free travel by leveraging loyalty programs set by airlines, hotels, different credit cards. And there are a lot of blogs and a lot of different platforms that already talk about this on the internet. But I noticed, and I've been noticing for a while, there are none that look like me. I know you guys can't see me since you're listening to this on a podcast. So I am a 5'1" Filipina American. Most people who talk about this on the internet are tall white men, and they write for other tall white men. And there's really just nobody who talks about points and miles from the viewpoint of women or immigrants or first generation or people of color or anything like that. But a lot of us are already using points and miles and would like to share more about that with our communities, but a lot of us don't have time to build up our own platforms. So the point of the Geobreeze Travel podcast is to interview people of all different backgrounds about how they use travel hacking, how they use points and miles to live their different travel hacking lifestyles. We have some who do the classic type of lifestyles of either being road warrior business travelers or the usual family travel with 2.4 kids, 1.6 dogs, or something like that. But we also have a lot of different stories that you wouldn't be able to find anywhere else when it comes to travel hacking. We have one lady who went to the Philippines and adopted her son using points and miles to travel there. We have people who are able to create a lot of different side gigs with their points and miles hobbies. So lots of different content that you wouldn't normally be able to find on some of the larger blogs.
That is rad. And I love that you mentioned that it's a different face than what we see, because like that's been something that we've slowly started to talk about as we've pulled away from Dave Ramsey being our like main idea of what financial literacy is. Yeah. It's like, wait a minute.
People can't see
Yeah.
you, but she just made a face, and I feel that face.
Yeah. Like we're like, wait a minute. We don't want like some old white dude speaking into us and our world. Like that is not what we really like want to subscribe to. And there's so many new content creators out there and people with brilliant ideas that social media now can give a voice to. And it's so cool. And I love that you stress that. And I will just say, too, that my sister, her ex-wife, who we're still, family with, is from the Philippines as well. She was raised in Guam, but she's a Filipino business owner. And so I have a particular soft spot for any type of people of color that can start their own businesses and their own ideologies in the modern world, because we don't need that many more white people doing stuff. We need to listen to other stories and histories. So shout out to you, because that's pretty rad.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So Julia, if you could explain to us, how in the world did you get started with travel hacking? So I know that you have traveled a lot yourself, but how did you get started with travel hacking? Did it start from when the first time you started traveling, or is it something that you learned about through time?
Definitely not when I first started traveling. And I know that every travel hacker, when they finally get into this game, they automatically start doing math in their head of how many points they could have gotten if they had known about travel hacking before, in like the before times. But the way that I learned about this was through reading about fire blogs. Like many of us, we read different personal finance blogs and consume different personal finance content from the internet. So back in, I think it was 2017, when I got into FIRE, the first time I was reading the classic Mr. Money Mustache, Afford Anything, back when it was more of a blog instead of a podcast, Go Curry Cracker, Millennial Revolution. So those were some that I was consuming. And they all talk about different things, whether it's real estate or investments, taxes. And then I think it was especially Go Curry Cracker and Millennial Revolution, we're talking about how they travel around the world for free using credit cards. And I had the same reaction that most people have when they first hear about this, which is, this is a scam. That's really how most people react to it, because it has the word hacking. It has you opening a lot of different credit cards. And most people, justifiably, the first time they hear about this are like, this is a scam. These people have been credit card scammed. And there's lots of like, there's just going to be repercussions, like their credit score is probably shot, or their spending is out of control, especially if you're coming from the Dave Ramsey camp where he likes to take his big scissors and cut up credit cards. Then you're just like, no, this is not going to go well. But I was really, really intrigued about this because I love traveling. And I'm like, oh, there's a way to hack this and to get it for free. And do it in a financially responsible way where you're not paying off interest on your credit cards, you're not shooting your credit score. Like, I want to learn more about this. So from there, my husband and I opened one or two credit cards, just started dipping our toe in really slowly. And the first time we actually were able to use a credit card redemption, we were going to Morocco, and 20 hours before we boarded this flight, our tour guide called us and said, "Hey, I have a family emergency and I have to cancel your tour package." And he was handling hotels, excursions, transportation, all of it. And so we were about to get on a plane to Morocco and we would have nowhere to go once we got there. So I called up American Express really quickly because we had just met the sign-up bonus for one of our cards. So I had points with SPG, which is the Starwood brand that's now merged with Marriott. And I said, "Hey, I have these points and I have no hotel. What do I do?" And so they walked me through the process and said, "Okay, you have this many points. You can get 4 free nights at the Sheraton Casablanca or something." And I said, "Cool." So then we landed in Morocco, went to this hotel, and the entire time we're just thinking, this isn't going to work. We're going to be like homeless in Morocco. But then it worked. And they said, "Yep, you have your free room. Here's your confirmation. We have upgraded you based off of your status by having this credit card. Here's free breakfast. Here's free lounge access every day. And here's a really nice experience." And from there, we were pretty much hooked.
That is
Wow.
so cool. That's rad. I love that worked out like that. So I gotta ask because my grandmother is a huge listener of ours. Shout out to Granny Winnie. And she has asked us a couple of times, like, "Hey, can you ask somebody to clarify what FIRE is? Or can you guys clarify what this is?" Because she's just not as plugged into social media. So I loved your intro with kind of what travel hacking is, talking about leveraging it. But if you had to just give somebody like a 30-second synopsis of exactly what travel hacking is to like the lay human, what would you say?
Travel hacking in the style that I do it is getting to travel for free in points and miles that you get from either credit cards or airline loyalty programs or hotel loyalty programs.
That's awesome. I love that.
Straight to the point. I
Yeah,
love
straight to
it.
the point. And a lot of people, I guess I can kind of ask you this as a follow up. Now, obviously, you just talked about a trip to Morocco, which is, far away from at least where we're at here in California. But it doesn't just have to be overseas, correct? Like you can essentially travel hack in the US or in, like the all of the America countries as well, right? I mean, like it's not just like an overseas idea.
Oh, absolutely. Some people do a lot more domestic travel hacking than international travel hacking, especially I think if you have kids and you don't want to take a 3-year-old across the world to Thailand or
Totally.
something, then you say, "Okay, let's travel hack a trip to Florida." And so a lot of families can just save hundreds of dollars a year, thousands of dollars a year by opening a couple credit cards and implementing some of these same techniques.
That's cool. My immediate thought was, yeah, kids and like Costco. Like you could probably find some ways to incorporate Costco in with like opening a credit card and travel hacking to like Disneyland.
Yeah.
Things like that you don't have to go overseas. You can still travel hack in, local places, but still get the airline or the hotel kind of accommodations
That's a good point.
taken care of. That's pretty rad. That's cool.
I think a lot of people just think it's airlines. So I like that you mentioned that it's, the hotel loyalty programs and stuff as well, because a lot of that, it's not just airline points. Like you don't just have to go flying a bunch of places. You can go stay somewhere as well and have that covered.
Absolutely. You can get free flights, you can get free hotels, you can get free food in certain situations. So when you're going to the airport, instead of having to buy a questionable $18 sandwich that's going to come on a styrofoam plate, a lot of the credit cards that we use for travel hacking come with lounge access. So you get to go into the fancy lounge for free and go to the buffet or whatever food they have prepared for you for free, and then drink alcohol for free before your flight and sit in this nice, quiet area with fancy chairs and a lot of room to spread out. The Wi-Fi is better in these lounge rooms. Some of them have massages, like there's somebody to give you massages. And
That's rad.
different lounges will have different perks. I've seen some that have a soundproof child area, like a play area, so that if you're traveling with children, you just stick your kids into like the soundproof ball pit or something, because I know so many families are always so concerned about traveling with kids and like, my kid's going to bother somebody who's like on a business call or something. I went to a lounge, I think it was Las Vegas, where they had a soundproof room for children and everyone was happy.
That's rad.
That's pretty cool.
That's-
Here, go
yeah.
play in the soundproof room.
That's super dope. So, okay, so you talked about, like looking into these other, I don't know, social media entities or whatever and learning more about this. I'm sure, though, that a lot of it was kind of learned through application as well and just like doing it on your own instead of reading. But was there ever a time where you got into a situation where you had travel hacked and something didn't work out and you or somebody was challenging you and you had to be like, no, wait a minute, like this is exactly what I've got and like you need to accommodate? Was there any time like that where you faced like any obstacles?
So I think there's two obstacles that we're talking about here. There's the obstacle of convincing other people this is a legit thing, and just the obstacle of what happens if something goes wrong with travel hacking. And I've been in both. So with something going wrong, there was a Marriott status match promo that was going on last fall, where you would sign up with a Marriott status challenge, and then you had to stay 15 nights over 90 days in a Marriott hotel. And I called them and I asked, hey, does it count if I pay for some of the nights with points instead of paying for all of it with cash? And they said, yeah, that's fine. Well, the customer service person that I talked to over the phone had no idea what they were talking about, and it was actually against terms and conditions. So I lost my platinum status with Marriott over that. So that wasn't cool, but lesson learned. You have to be really, really diligent with checking terms and conditions sometimes, or just ask like 5 different friends and really do your research for things like that. For facing objections from the general population or people who I try to tell about this, it happens all the time. And I think everybody in the travel hacking and the points and miles community are pretty much just ostracized sometimes from different circles of friends, because all we talk about is, oh, and then we can get it for free. Just all you need is to open this credit card. And our friends who are not into this are just like, stop, just stop. So people have all sorts of concerns all the time. Like, what's it going to do to my credit score? And how do I keep myself from paying a lot more in interest rates? And what if this goes wrong? And do I have to close down the credit cards? And how do I justify annual fees for any of these credit cards to get the free travel? Is it going to really be mathematically worth it? And we can step through those questions one by one, but these are very common for any travel hacker to just face these questions whenever they're like, I got to travel for free using points and miles, then people are going to ask those 15 questions.
That makes sense. It's almost like you have those stock questions that people are going to ask, and you're like, I already know the answer to this. So if somebody says like, well, show me the math, you're like, I can show you the math 300 different ways. It's up to you whether or not you want to believe that my math is correct, because I've already mapped this out. I know what it's going to look like, but you have to get people who are open to that idea, because I'm sure that happens all the time.
I have had, on 2 separate occasions, 2 different airline flights credit cards. One of them I think was for Delta, and then the other one is for
United.
And that one we have not closed yet. And so I was really confused in regards to the miles. And, you're gaining all of these points and miles. And I was thinking that I had all of these, like, actual miles that you got to use. And I wanted to ask you, so, like, for example, if it said that I had 1,000 airline miles, that's not actually 1,000 miles, right?
That does not mean you get to fly 1,000 physical miles.
Right. And that's what I thought for the longest time. And it super confused me, because it would be like, oh, you have 40,000 miles. I'm like, I get to travel the world for free. And it just was not. That's what confused me. Do you know why they do that?
I really wish everyone just said you have 40,000 points, and then everybody would say, what does 1 point get me? Because then you have to look at the award charts and say, okay, I have 20,000 United points. That can get me a trip to Europe or something like that. So I like the term points a lot more, but most of the airlines will say miles.
Gotcha. So it's just a different unit that they use.
Okay, that makes sense, because it was very confusing. I think when I opened my Delta card, when I opened it, you spend X amount of dollars, and I got like 45,000 miles or something crazy.
Yeah.
But then I went to go like cash in the miles, and it wasn't really 45,000 miles.
Well, that's probably how they get some people, though, you
Yeah.
know, who aren't travel hackers and who just see like, oh, I have all these miles. I'm going to do this trip, or I'm going to get this trip paid for like this. And they're like, wait a minute. Just to fly to, you know, Independence, Kansas is 40,000 miles / points. So sorry, you can't get all the way over to Germany. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Very confusing, but it makes sense to use points instead of miles, because that's, I think, what was the most confusing for me, because I was thinking I actually physically get to go that many miles.
And I think sometimes people are also just really confused about how many points and miles does it even take to do the trip that I want to do, where people will be like, oh, can I travel 40,000 miles away? No, that's not how that works. But there's a lot of different award charts and a lot of people who can help with saying, okay, if you have this many points and miles, here's where you can go with that. But I would actually recommend, if somebody wanted to get into travel hacking, that you work the other way around, where you say, okay, I want to take a trip to Italy and I'm flying from Chicago. Here's how many points and miles it would take to travel from Chicago to Italy through these different airlines that have that route. And then you say, what credit cards will transfer that point currency that I need? And how am I going to get that many points using these different credit cards? So working backwards that way is going to be so much better than when people say, oh, I'm going to open a credit card. Cool, now what do I do with this now that I have some points and miles? Working backwards gets you some cool prizes so much faster than opening some credit cards and trying to figure it out.
I know I'm probably like getting you to give up all of your like secrets here, so to speak, but is there like a site that you can go to that kind of like lays out all of those different card options that relate to airline flights? Or like, you know, if somebody were to kind of backwards plan like that, is there like a nice clean space to start?
There's not one website that does all of this because there's so many different programs to try to track. So the best way to do this is honestly to join a community somewhere. There's a lot of Facebook groups that you can ask questions, and then there's going to be somebody who knows about each different program who can help you piece it together that way. That's one of the things that I do as a travel hacking coach, is I research this for people where they say, here's the trip that I want. I'll research how to do it, and then I'll put together a credit card plan for them. But yeah, as far as who even flies from your hometown to a given destination, I normally just start with Google Flights to see who even flies that route. And then I'll start looking into, okay, what are the transfer partners and who are the airline alliances with those different routes? And then what credit cards can transfer to those different alliances. Most of the time, you have like 3 big pockets that you can use. You have the Chase cards, which have 28 different partners, including Southwest, United, JetBlue. And so the Chase cards are like the Chase Sapphire Preferred, Chase Sapphire Reserve, Chase Freedom Flex, those types. You have the American Express family that has the membership rewards points. That's a whole nother set of different airlines that you can transfer to. You have city cards, and they have the thank you points. And so those transfer to their own set. So between those 3 families, you have most of the airlines covered. And then from there, it's just a matter of logging into the different airline sites. If you go to united.com, you can check how many points it would take in order to get a free trip. You can check it through southwest.com for how many points it would take to get a free flight on Southwest for the route that you want. And then you just make a plan for how you're going to get those many points. Most of your points are going to come from your sign-up bonus on the card. Most cards have a deal of like, if you spend $4,000 in the first 3 months on the card, you get 50,000 bonus points or something like that. And you really, really want to make sure that you meet that sign-up bonus and that you do it in a way that's smart and not in a way where you panic and say, I didn't plan for this. Now I'm going to buy $5,000 worth of stuff that I don't need from Amazon just to get these points. So making sure that you plan it accordingly is really, really key to being successful in this game.
That's a really good point. Okay, I'm going to take the opportunity now to kind of switch gears, because I really want to touch on people that are scared of credit cards, which kind of is us here. So for a really long time, we were like avid Dave Ramsey followers. I mean, ride or die team no credit cards. And that came from following him, but it also came from really, really bad toxic money habits with our credit cards. I mean, we racked up $27,000 of credit card debt within like 3 years or so, after having paid off a bunch of credit card debt several years before that. And so we didn't have the money knowledge to handle that. And so a lot of our listeners are either getting out of debt or confronting their own poor credit card habit that they have. So I was kind of wondering, what are some low stakes ways that our listeners can introduce travel hacking without going crazy? Or would you say, because I feel like it might be either or, if you are in debt and you have no control of your money, is this something people want to just completely stay away from?
Short answer, yes. If you are in debt and not in a place where you can pay off your credit card bill in full each month, travel hacking is not for you yet. This is for people who are not carrying credit card debt from month to month. It's probably the number one rule of travel hacking is you need to set all of your credit cards to be paid automatically in full at the end of each month, or else you're going to have to pay interest, as we all know. And something that we might not know is these credit cards that give the free travel have some of the highest interest rates of any credit cards on the market. That's how they can afford to give such good travel benefits and so much for free, is because they're really banking on people to not pay it off in full, and they're using those interest payments to give people free credit. So that's rule number one. If you are not in a place yet where you can pay off your entire credit card in full every month, don't travel hack yet. And also the second rule I kind of alluded to before, don't buy random crap just to get more points. You really want to just time your credit card openings for when you're going to have a big purchase anyway. If you're going to have a down payment on a car, if you're remodeling a kitchen, if you have a tuition payment coming up or something like that, something in a $3,000 range, a wedding, open your credit card right before that. Put that $3,000 that you were already going to spend anyway on the credit card, get it paid off in full, get the sign up bonus, and then you're good to go.
That's a really good point.
Yeah.
I mean, I just was so scared for so long of even dipping into talking about credit cards with people. I was telling Justin before we got on this call, I'm a little nervous because I don't want to introduce someone to our listeners that our listeners might be like, wait, this is bad for me. I can't do this. But I think once you get to a place where you're in control and you have financial literacy and you're at the place of financial freedom, then if you choose to, you can choose to explore this. And we've even thought about, like, we're going to sell our house and pay all of our debt off, and we live in California. We can't afford for our credit score to just be completely shot. So when we paid off all of our credit cards, we didn't close them. We still have them. We don't use them. And so we're going to have to slowly start using them again, and that's kind of scary. But we're in a place now where, you know, I understand what it means and what it's a very slippery slope, but if you're in the right place with the right end goal and end mission, you can really benefit and use these as leverage in a positive way.
I think a lot of people are also really concerned about how travel hacking impacts their credit score. So breaking that down into a few different pieces. The first piece is your credit payment history. So if you're doing the correct first rule anyway, and you're getting everything paid off in full automatically each month, your credit payment history is just going to be amazing. So that's 35% of your credit score. You're good there. The second largest piece is your credit utilization, which you want to keep under 10% ideally to have the highest score possible in that category. And with travel hacking, if you're opening a whole bunch of credit cards, so your utilization is calculated by how much credit you use divided by how much credit you have. If you have a bunch of credit and you're only using each card like one charge per month or so, your utilization ratio is super low, which means your credit score is really high in that area too. So it helps in that sense. And then the way that it hurts people is temporarily, where you open a credit card, they have to do a hard pull in order to give you the credit card. And so you'll see a temporary dip in your credit score, which if you're about to buy a house, don't do this right before you're going to get a house. But otherwise, your credit score will go down a little bit, and then you do responsible things like you pay off your statement balance in full every month, and then it'll go back up. And also your credit score goes up if you have a lot of different credit lines, but it goes down if you get a new credit line temporarily. So you have to like bring your score down in order for it to go up later.
Yeah, you got to kind of like ride the wave, which makes sense. Like you got to deal with the temporary like little dip and then understand that the right money habits are going to pick you back up.
And I really like what you said about not only paying it off in full every month, but setting it up automatically to, like, you have the option, you click the box, pay in full automatically, and it's set up and you don't do anything. And that was what I was scared to do when we were using credit cards, because I knew that we wouldn't be able to afford it. And so if you are intentional and you're spending according to your budget and not going crazy, then if you're just using it for gas or whatever, you just click the button and it does it all for you. And I actually hadn't thought of that. That's a very good point.
Yeah, that's probably one of the safer ways to manage everything.
Well, for sure.
Yeah, you have to just think of credit cards as, you just tell yourself you don't have the option to carry it into next month. Like, this is a debit card that just automatically is going to wipe and get paid in 30 days. I mean, I guess you can go in and pay it off earlier than that if you need to, but most of the time there's not reason for most people to have to do that. So if you just think of it as a debit card that's not paid right away, it takes stuff out of your checking account within 30 days, it works out a lot better. So then also you get really good at becoming intuitive and thinking, okay, how much do I have left in my checking account? Can I afford to charge this? If it's going to get paid in full anyway, am I going to go into overdraft? And so you're a lot more in tune with the entire financial picture of your checking account, your savings account, how much you're charging in without having to use cash envelopes.
Yeah, that makes sense. You're more aligned with it all. I like that. So I have an interesting question now, just kind of hearing you talk about it all. At the highest, what was the most open credit cards that you had due to travel hacking?
I think right now my husband and I have around 17 combined, which is in the normal range. I've definitely interviewed some people on the Geobreeze travel podcast who have more than 30 credit cards.
Wow.
And our credit scores are all over 800.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. Like you said, as long as you're taking care of it. And so do you leave them open for a while, or is it like in the points and miles community, like you were talking about, is there like a process for how you slowly phase out and like cancel cards?
That's a really good question. So it used to be a lot more common to open a card, get the sign up bonus, close the card, reopen it, get the new sign up bonus, close it. They don't allow that anymore. Chase and Amex cracked down on that pretty hard. So now I will hold on to most of my cards. And it's just important each year to make sure that you can justify the annual fee for a lot of these cards. A lot of them will charge you $95 or so per year, which I know scares a lot of people too, where they're like, credit card fees are bad, but you just need to be able to justify the annual fee. So for example, a lot of the hotel cards will be $95 a year, but they come with a free hotel room each night. So as long as you're planning to stay in a hotel night at some point in the year with that chain, and that hotel room is going to cost at least $95, which most hotel rooms do, it's justifiable to keep that card year over year. If you have some travel hacking credit cards that have no annual fee, you should just keep those forever because they're really good for your credit score, to keep your utilization down, to keep your credit lines big. And sometimes we have closed down credit cards, not really for like the sign up bonus thing, but just because we couldn't justify keeping it open. One example, we used to have a Southwest credit card for back when we lived in Colorado because we flew Southwest all the time. But then we moved to New Jersey and Southwest decided to stop servicing Newark Airport right around the time that we moved over here. So we said, okay, there's no use for us to still have a Southwest credit card. So we closed that one down.
That makes sense as long as you're understanding whether or not the yearly fee is worth it. I mean, that's just, yeah, kind of part of being on top of your money too. So you kind of alluded to this earlier, but one of my questions when Haley and I were talking was, I have only ever thought of travel hacking as like an airline program, right? Where you're just getting the flights. But you've kind of mentioned that hotels are included as well. You mentioned you can get some free food. You talked about kicking it in a lounge and getting drinks instead of just like sitting and waiting around. So as somebody who's helped people travel, how do you work with those folks who are like, well, I want to get the flight taken care of on the card, and then I want to use this money that I've saved up for a hotel? Do you ever try and say like, okay, let's do that? Or is it, part of your role to flip that and say, well, actually it's cheaper if you do the hotel with points and the flight with payment? Like, how does that work as a travel hacking coach that's looking at the whole trip?
Yeah, so I will work one-on-one with a person and say, what are your goals? And do you need hotel? Why or why not? And some people will say, oh, I just want to visit my family in China. And when I get to China, I'm just going to sleep at my parents' house anyway, so I don't need any hotel card. Then I'm like, cool, we will focus super hard on getting you free flights, maybe free business class flights or something like that, just because they don't need a hotel. And then some people too will just say, I much prefer Airbnbs. And then I'll give options of, would you like to stay in a Marriott Residence Inn or a Hyatt House or some kind of hotel that has extended stay where you have a full kitchen or something? And sometimes they'll still be like, no, I really just like Airbnbs. I'm like, okay, cool. So then we'll focus more on travel hacking their flights.
That's
That
a good
makes
point.
sense.
It depends on kind of how people want to travel.
Yeah.
Like if you really want to stay in hostels and Airbnbs and meet people, then that'd be a place where you'd budget and put your money in.
Or if you're somebody like me, it's like I just want to fly, go to the hotel,
Yeah.
sit by a pool, drink all day long. Like, let's hook it up wherever we can. That makes sense. I like that.
So we have a timeshare in Mexico that we bought when we went there for our honeymoon, and we're about to pay it off. And we kept thinking like, okay, since we're gonna have to not trash our credit, how are we going to? Which credit card are we gonna keep using? And the one that we decided to keep. I mean, right now we're not using any credit cards, but once everything's paid off, we will have to do something to keep the utilization up. And so we decided to use the Airlines one. So we're going to have to connect with you to help us figure out how the points and the miles and everything work
Yeah.
for our United flights when we go to Mexico
How
next
to
year.
fly me down there to get some margaritas. I like that.
I would like a free trip to Mexico. I mean, we already are going to technically have the hotel for free because we paid for it. Definitely
Perfect.
not free. But but now we're going to need some flights.
I like that.
Cool.
That works.
So what would you say your vision is for Geobreeze post-COVID world? What do you want this to grow into once people can actually start traveling a little more?
Far, far, far down the line, I would like for it to be an in-person conference event where we have speakers who are featured, who are travel hackers that people have just never gotten to hear from before, because there are a few points and miles events or just travel events where they'll have one travel hacker person talking, and it's almost always just the same 12 people over and over again who get to talk at these things. But that is like far down the line once everything is up and running. In the short term, I want to keep growing the podcast. I want to keep featuring as many cool, diverse stories as possible because we just don't have a lot of like Asian points people featured. We have some on YouTube. There's Credit Brian or Ask Sebi or Prince of Travel. They're on YouTube. But outside of that, people haven't really heard of many Asian points and miles people. There are very few Black points and miles people or Latino points and miles people who are featured in media, but they're out there. They're actually travel hacking right now. And I'm just sending out the bat signal to find them, bring them onto the podcast so that they can spread their knowledge and then get even more of their communities into the game as well. For my personal travel, so we have this trip booked to Mexico that we already had to move once due to COVID. And we got 2 round-trip business class flights from New York to Madrid for 34,000 points each. So 68,000 points total, which is less than 1 sign-up bonus for a credit card because there was a deal on points and miles. And so I think we had to pay like, I don't even know, in taxes and fees, $80 or something. And then less than 1 credit card sign up for 2 round-trip business class flights to Spain. And I am so excited. And
Wow.
It's scheduled for the end of May. I might have to move it again. We'll see what the world looks like at that point. But yeah, this year has just been a lot of racking up points and miles because we couldn't go anywhere. Like there was nowhere to spend them. So I'm like, well, my My points balance is looking pretty good right now, and I'm not sure where I want to spend all of them yet. There is a really cool redemption called the Around the World redemption with ANA Airlines. You need 125,000 points, which I have twice that, so my husband and I could both do this. And you fly around the world. You can stop in 8 cities. All of it will be in business class, and it's like around 125,000 points with American Express, which is 2 credit card signups. So per person. So that's really easy. The challenging part with that one is actually the time off from work, because you don't want to rush it and you don't want to just every day fly to a new city. So it takes 2 or 3 weeks off of work, which is the more challenging piece. But that would be a really cool redemption to take one day, is the ANA Around the World trip for free in business class.
That'd be so
Wow.
dope.
That'd be so fun. Okay, I have a couple questions that just popped up. The first one is, if you have a bunch of points with American Express on one card, but you have another American Express card, but it's under the same company, American Express, or I guess this would work also if you had them under multiple Chase cards or multiple City cards, can they combine them?
Short answer, yes. So with Chase, you need a gateway card in order to use it for travel, or else it's just cashback points. There are 3 gateway cards. You have the Chase Sapphire Preferred, which is generally considered one of the most popular first cards for anybody wanting to get in the game. You have the Chase Sapphire Reserve, and you have the Chase Inc. Business. So those are the 3 cards. You need one of them in order to transfer the rest of your points from cashback to travel. Because if you just have the Chase Freedom Flex or just the Chase Freedom Unlimited, you get cash back off of that, but you don't get to use travel. But you can pool them all under the same umbrella. This does not work for co-branded cards. So for example, there's like the World of Hyatt hotel card that's technically with Chase Bank, but you can't transfer your Hyatt points in with the Chase Ultimate Rewards portal. However, you can go the other way. You can transfer Chase points to Hyatt. So there's a lot of rules about which directions you can transfer things and how to pool things. It is a little overwhelming at first, but we have so many different people who can help anybody new to the game with how transfers work and how to do different points redemptions.
See, this is why you exist, because
Yeah.
all of like this is
For
so
real.
confusing, but that's why you have to find someone who knows what they're talking about and who can really do all the research for you and help you really understand what the heck you're doing. Because I'm still like trying to follow all of this, but I understand this is not my forte. So I would go find someone like you who can help me plan out my trip and plan everything out. And it makes sense. So much sense. Ah, this is great.
Yeah, and you find somebody with that expertise.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like that, we see that meme that's like, you're not paying somebody just for this, service or their craft. You're paying them for all of the front-loaded work that they had to do to be able to produce that thing, right? And so it's something like that where I can only imagine the amount of learning and studying and practice that it's taken for you to even get to where you're at now. And it's not like you're just like, well, I've made it, I'm done, I'm never going to learn anything more, right? You're going to constantly be working to find more and more info. And that's what people need, is they need to be able to be like, okay, I'm going to go to this travel hacking coach because they're going to help me be successful, so that even if I'm, paying for a service or whatever, the amount I'm saving on the back end is still more than if I was just try and do it myself.
Absolutely. And so many people are like, but I can find all of this for free on like blogs and YouTube. And I'm like, you can. You absolutely can. It's going to take a while.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
so,
it's like, go ahead.
Some people are like, I'm okay with that. I like to do like the research by myself and like spend 4 hours a night just pouring through different blogs. I'm like, okay, that's great. But there are some people who are like, I need to go here for free. It's in 11 months. Help me. And then that's where I come in, where I'm like, all right, here's the exact steps that you need to do this month. Get this card. Next month, meet the minimum spend on that card. Month after that, get this next card. And so that's what I do, is just prepare step-by-step plans for people so that they can get to their travel hacking goals and get their questions answered without being like, all right, let me Google another blog post that answers this other question. Because as you learn more about points and miles, it just opens up so many more questions that you didn't think existed when you were 2 steps behind where you are now.
Okay, so before we get to our last question, I do want to ask one quick thing. Is there a time where you like set something up on somebody's trip where you're like, dude, that was so dope. Like, I can't believe I just pulled that off and was able to help this human do that. Where you were like, okay, that's legit. Like, that was pretty tight.
So I'm actually pretty new to the coaching thing. I think I started doing this when COVID happened. So I've been helping people rack up a ton of points and miles and been doing a lot of research on redemption. So I haven't been able to help anybody with a cool redemption yet. But what I have been able to help people with is getting free hotel upgrades because I have an email upgrade template and I can make a special link for you guys. It'll be at geobreezetravel.com/avocado. And what you do is when you have a hotel reservation, write to the hotel ahead of time if it's a special occasion with the email template. And I've gotten some pretty cool redemptions with this, and other people have too by using my template. I once had a free night certificate to use with a Hilton hotel. We used it in Maui at the most expensive possible Hilton hotel, which is the Grand Wailea. It's the Waldorf Astoria Hotel in Maui. Starts at $500 a night. So we got that for free. And
Wow.
then I wrote to the hotel and was like, hey, special occasion. If there's any room and it's not sold out, can we get upgraded to the $650 room suite? They upgraded us to the $900 a night suite, which had this incredible ocean view. It included free breakfast. It included free dinner, which saved us a ton of money. They wheeled in this cart of Hawaiian local snacks and champagne and everything. So we saved probably $1,000 a night with this redemption.
An email template.
Email
That is
template.
so okay. Yeah, so like that's what I'm talking about. Like that's dope. Like
Yeah.
that is so cool. Even if you haven't sent anybody anywhere due to COVID, like that is that's rad.
We are definitely going to hire you to help us figure out how to get our flights to Mexico for free.
Yeah.
Because we're going, it's going to be our debt-free trip. We're not going this summer. We're about to pay off all of our debt when we sell our house. We're having a baby in June, so I'm not about to go this summer. So we're going to go next summer. And we need free flights.
Love that.
Okay, you're hired.
So
Yes,
you
that's
have
dope.
a whole year to get all of these points and miles, and then you're going to be like, we're sitting in lie flat seats to Mexico. We have all of this free
Yes.
stuff. Yeah.
That's so tight. I love it. Okay, so our famous last question, Julia. And this is kind of cool because it's going to obviously relate to travel hacking. If you could put a stop sign on anybody's journey through travel hacking, where would you put that stop sign? What would you stop somebody from doing on the travel hacking journey?
Shaming other people for their travel hacking style, because it happens too much in the community where when somebody gets good at travel hacking, then suddenly they look down upon everybody who's not as advanced as they are. And they're like, wait, you didn't know about this super secret redemption hack? Why are you still flying in economy? You're just not worthy. And I want that to stop. That's one of the main things that I'm trying to just stop with the podcast, and by showing lots of different travel hacking lifestyles where if you've never flown first class, that's fine. And if you saved hundreds of dollars instead of thousands of dollars on travel hacking this year, that's fine. Like, so that's where I would put the stop sign, is when people start to be like, I'm so cool, look at me, and I'm way better than this person. I'm like, stop that. And instead make all of this more collaborative. Give shout outs to other travel hackers in this space, because historically none of the blogs would ever link to each other. They're always so scared of like losing their followers to another travel hacker. I know that a lot of the travel hackers, some of the travel hackers in like the debt-free community will never link to another person's travel hacking Instagram. They'll only call out like other debt-free people. And I'm like, why? Just like share more travel hacking content, like share other people's tips too. And I know it's because of the affiliate links. That's how most travel hacking blogs or influencers will make their money, is like if people use their links to sign up versus somebody else's links, like you make like $100 per sign up. It's pretty good money. But I think that's created some weird incentives where some people will not ever reference other travel hacking pages. And sometimes they'll also just be like, I'm so much better than other people, in hopes that it steers more people to use their links and only follow them and not follow other people. And that's really what I just want to stop by showcasing as many different travel hacking lifestyles as possible on my podcast.
I love that because on our podcast, we've mentioned the other podcasts that we listen to within this community. Like you were on Friends on Fire. We love Mike and Maggie. Like they're our homies. So we shout them out because they're tight. We shout out the budget teacher. We talk about Lexa from the Avocado Toast Budget and her TikTok and Instagram stuff. Like the goal is for the non-business human beings, like the little people, to be financially literate and successful in whatever they're doing. So there's no reason to trash or not support somebody else that's helping other people to save money or to get ahead in life, because that's what we want. We want like equality and like actual success for everyday normal people, and that's how it should be. You're so right. Like whether you saved $100 this year or if you saved $10,000 traveling, like you saved some money and you hopefully you had a great time vacationing or traveling or whatever you were doing. That should be the most important thing. I love that. And then secondarily, obviously too, like we need diverse voices. Like we don't need to hear a bunch of white people talking about travel to some country that they don't even like respect their culture or anything. We need other people who are from, communities of color who are like, yeah, this is what we can do. And then they introduce other members of that community to gaming the system so that they can leverage it and travel for free. That's rad. That's cool. I love that. That's a really good stop sign. Somebody mentioned the other day one of our episodes should be about all of people's stop signs.
Just like back to back?
Yeah, for the folks that we interviewed. And that's a great one right there. I love that.
Is that your favorite one?
That might be one of my favorite ones because that's something that we have felt. We have felt shame and guilt at times for not doing certain things. We mentioned it with like the Ramsey community feeling like, oh, we're like Dave-ish. There's things we did that maybe Dave Ramsey wouldn't have supported, and we felt shame and we shouldn't have. And that's part of the reason too that we left the Ramsey community, because they got their minds mixed up in the clouds at times.
Can I just mention that he just tried to shame like the entire population that if they needed $600 or $1,400 to change their life, like that they had messed up something already. And I'm just like, dude, a pandemic happened and they need the $1,000 emergency fund or something. And like 1,400 is more than that. So
yeah.
Yeah.
So much shame.
Oh, I've got
He's
a lot
wild.
to say about that.
And that's his fan base. That was what was crazy to me. Was like, dude, this is your fan base you're talking to. Like they all need that money. That's why they listen to you. Like why would you shit on your own fan base?
I mean, especially if you're paying off debt or you're trying to fund a minimal little $1,000 emergency fund, that literally kickstarts everything.
Wild.
Anyway, I've got a lot to say about that man, and we don't like him.
But we're glad that we had you on and not Dave. So, Julia, we want to say thank you so much for joining us. We are super hyped that you were able to come on. Why don't you give us anywhere that our listeners can find you? Shout out your Instagram, any websites you've got, if you've got a YouTube or a blog, if
Facebook,
you need like
your
snail mail,
podcast.
however somebody can reach you so that they can utilize your services.
Yeah, so I am mostly on Instagram. My handle is Geobreeze Travel. You can listen to the Geobreeze Travel podcast. Every month we do a travel hacking hangout where it's kind of merged more into a masterclass where I'll prepare talking about one particular program, so either just the Chase program or just Amex or just Marriott or just Hyatt each month. And then but it's not just me teaching the masterclass. Anybody who's really knowledgeable about that topic is free to come and join as well and then promote their own channels, because again, I get really annoyed when some travel hackers are like, I am the master of this and nobody else is allowed to show off that they know things. That annoys me. So anybody who knows about the topic of the month can come join, and beginners can come and join too and just listen and absorb knowledge. So we do that every month. And I do free 30-minute coaching calls with people who are just like, how do I get into this? Where do I get started? Here's my goals. And then I kind of point them towards the correct path of, okay, start with these cards. Here you go. Enjoy. So if anybody wants to do 30-minute free coaching calls with me, you can find the link to that in my Instagram bio as well.
You're hired already for us.
Yeah, that's right. And we'll make sure that we link your Instagram bio into our show notes. So if they don't even want to go to Instagram and type it in, we'll just have the link straight there.
Yeah.
So they can find it.
I'll put your Instagram, and a link straight to your podcast as well, and your website and all of that jazz in our show notes. So you can just click on the show notes and then go connect and make sure you follow, because she's legit.
Yes, love it. Well, Julia, thank you so much for joining us on a Sunday. We really appreciate you sitting down. And like I said, I'm such a terrible traveler that I'm excited for our next trip. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Definitely. Take care.
All right, Toasties, please make sure you are subscribed to this podcast so you do not miss out on our grand finale next week. Next Wednesday will be the end of season 1, and you do not want to miss that episode.
That's going to do it for this episode of The Price of Avocado Toast. As always, we are so thankful to have had this conversation with you, and we're so grateful to be part of this community. Happy budgeting.
You've got this, Toasties. Thank you for listening to The Price of Avocado Toast. If you vibed with this episode, share it with a friend.
If you're interested in speaking more with the financial coach, hit up our coach Ryan at MeFinanciallyFree on Instagram.